You don't govern billions of universes with brute force alone. You do it by making your absolute rule look like absolute common sense. Welcome back, narrative nerds and world builders. Today, we are cracking open the ultimate playbook of cosmic control. We often think of tyrannical gods ruling through world-shattering lightning bolts and terrifying displays of raw power. But what happens when the weapon of choice isn't violence, but cultural dominance? What happens when an authoritarian regime convinces the entire universe that submission is simply the natural order of things? Today, we are taking Antonio Gramsci's groundbreaking political theory of cultural hegemony and applying it directly to the breathtaking celestial politics of the Annals of an Angel series. We're dissecting how the creator, Janus, and later his successor, Drake, build an invisible system of manufactured consent, and why powerful figures like Jason and Lucifer are inevitably driven to smash that paradise to pieces. Let's dive in. Before we look at the heavens, let's ground ourselves in some brilliant philosophy. In the early 20th century, Marxist thinker Antonio Gramsci asked a fascinating question. Why do oppressed populations often accept their own exploitation instead of instantly rebelling? His answer was cultural hegemony. Gramsci argued that ruling classes don't just maintain control through the police or military, what he called coercion. Instead, they use cultural institutions to spread their own values, framing them as the common sense baseline for everyone. Now, let's scale that up from a single country to an entire multiverse. In the Annals of an Angel, Janus doesn't just sit on a throne waving his hands to vaporize dissenters. He builds an elaborate, multi-layered ideological infrastructure. He establishes the very rules of reality, defining what is righteous, what is sinful, and what is necessary to preserve creation. The angels don't obey Janus because they're constantly terrified. They obey because they literally cannot conceive of a reality where Janus isn't right. It is the ultimate manifestation of paradise as a political trap. Let's look at step one of how this hegemony functions: the architecture of absolute control. In the Annals of an Angel, we discover a fascinating detail about heaven's evolution. Initially, there's a grand, awe-inspiring palace where the ruling celestial family resides. But later, under the guise of progress and equality, this palace is removed, replaced by an open field where everyone can supposedly meet as equals. Sounds beautiful, right? A true democratic paradise. But look closer through a critical lens. Hegemony is at its most dangerous when it hides its own power lines. By flattening the physical hierarchy, by removing the literal throne room, the system creates a powerful illusion of egalitarianism. It tells the subjects, look, we are all equals here. There is no master. Yet the underlying cosmic framework remains entirely unchanged. The rules are still absolute. The power dynamics are still concentrated at the top, but because it looks like a free, open field, dissent becomes psychologically harder to justify. If you rebel against a visible tyrant in a palace, you're a freedom fighter. But if you rebel in an open field where everyone is told they are equal, the system can easily paint you as erratic, ungrateful, or dangerous. This brings us to step two, the burden of the hegemonic successor. What happens when a new leader takes over this pre-designed paradise? When Drake ascends to power, inheriting the cosmic mantle from Janus, he doesn't just gain limitless, cool superpowers. He inherits a system demanding total, uninterrupted stability across billions of universes. Gramsci noted that a hegemonic group must constantly adapt and absorb new elements to maintain its moral leadership. For Drake, this means trying to manage the chaotic, volatile nature of multiple Earths while dealing with the staggering sensory overload of godhood. He is trapped in a paradox. He genuinely wants to protect everything, but the very system he commands is built on a foundation of absolute conformity. He has to balance the ultimate power of a god with the messy, fractured mind of a human who has suffered endless cycles of brutal deaths and reincarnations. Drake becomes both the chief administrator of the hegemony and its most tragic prisoner, forced to uphold a flawless cosmic facade while privately fracturing under the psychological cost of absolute responsibility. But a hegemony is never entirely stable. There is always a breaking point where manufactured consent collapses back into raw coercion. Every step. The outcasts of paradise. When the illusion of common sense consensus shatters, figures like Lucifer and his chief advisors, like Azazel, rise up. Lucifer refuses to buy into the narrative that the creator's design is the only moral pathway. To him, the cosmic setup isn't a perfect, loving paradise. It's an elegant golden cage designed to strip away authentic self-determination. When Lucifer's advisors warn him that his brother has returned stronger than ever under the moniker of Drake, Lucifer doesn't cower. He actively prepares for war. He understands that a system built on total conformity cannot mathematically handle a truly volatile, unpredictable wildcard. Lucifer's rebellion is a violent, direct rejection of the cultural dominance of heaven. He forces the celestial regime to drop its friendly, egalitarian facade and reveal its true, destructive, coercive teeth.
But rebellion against cosmic hegemony doesn't just happen on grand, fiery battlefields. It happens in the most quiet, domestic spaces imaginable. This is our final step, the spark of domestic subversion. Take Jason, for example.
I can't hold
Jason's
it back.
Defiance
It's
isn't
too
born
strong.
out of a desire for cosmic conquest of Lucifer's. It is sparked by the direct, exhausting intrusion of the divine into everyday human life. Imagine trying to navigate love, grief, and simple choices when a literal celestial hierarchy keeps pulling the strings, stopping time, and demanding that your life conform to a preordained grand design. When Jason breaks tile samples with his mind out of sheer, unadulterated frustration, it's a brilliant, localized microcosm of resistance. He is rejecting the heavy, claustrophobic expectations of a system that tells him his personal desires don't matter compared to the survival of the multiverse. It proves Gramsci's ultimate truth. No matter how deeply a ruling power embeds its ideology into the fabric of culture, the volatile, uncalculable nature of human empathy, love, and free will can never be fully mapped out or controlled. Choice is the ultimate system glitch.
At the end of the day, whether you are analyzing political structures in our world or exploring the staggering, multi-universal scale of the Annals of an Angel, the core message remains exactly the same. True power doesn't just rule your actions, it tries to rule your mind. But the second someone stands up and says, "This doesn't make sense, and I choose a different path," the entire illusion of absolute control begins to unravel. If you loved unpacking the deep political philosophy and complex character psychology behind these incredible fictional universes, make sure to absolutely smash that subscribe button, drop a like, and click that notification bell so you never miss our deep dive world-building breakdowns. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment down below. In a grand sci-fi or fantasy epic, do you find ideological, quiet rebellions more compelling? Or do you prefer all-out, earth-shattering cosmic wars against the gods? Let's chat in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, World Builders, and I will see you all in the very next video.